What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick? As my music fades out and I get it right and I get in there in a proper time. Welcome back to the AMSC Commercialisation of Sports series, presented by myself, Anthony Morrissey. I'm the CEO and founder of AMSC. It's a lovely day here in Gothenburg. Don't know what it's like wherever you guys are. It's always nice to be looking at different sports. And before I start, there's a couple of things I found on LinkedIn that I thought would be very interesting for people to look at. There's a story around a guy called Maeve Denner. He's a New Zealand rower. Have a quick look at that. It's a great passionate story from around 9 years ago. And then also there's a few other little bits and pieces that we've done there that I think is quite interesting in how you can develop passion within sport and what it means. Well, my guest today is someone that I've been very lucky to know for quite some time in my time at Munster Rugby, but also watching from outside, looking in to see the inspiration character that he is and everything, the growth element that he has done right through the club. He's a perfect example of what people call a Munster man. He's very much connected into it. And now he's moved into the business side of things and moved into working basically with EBS, getting mortgages for Cork City and Cork County. But for me, it's going to be an inspirational, interesting conversation because I'm really engaged as to what it was like as a professional sports person to then move into professional entity, but also then what does he look back and how does he see it? So without further afield, Billy Holland, how are you doing, my man?
I'm very good, and thanks for that lovely introduction. Glad my face wasn't up on the screen. I was cringing at some of it. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be on to chat, which is
well, that's part of the whole joy that I do. I love cringing people. It was part of when I worked at Munster, when some of the guys used to be injured, they'd have to do Q&As with me in one of the sponsor suites, and I could see the cringy face in them when I'd start blabbering on about different things. So it was always entertaining to have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go back to the very start of you getting involved with sport, but also just involved with the passion of what sport means to you. So where did the sports passion come from your perspective? When a little young Billy Holland, what was the kind of elements that you can remember, your earliest memories of sport?
I just love being outside. I just, right from a young age, I love kicking the ball around like most young kids. You just love a ball, and my parents enabled me, and fond memories of kicking the ball around the back garden. My father when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. And when I was young, I played every sport. I was up in Cannes playing rugby at the age of 5 or 6. But I played, playing soccer on the green or out in the road. Played a little bit of golf, hurling. Not for long. I was terrible at it. Too much skill involved in that sport. Football, anything and everything. I just loved all different sports, and you make such great friends through sport, and it's just I was always an active kid, and found it was probably a good way of keeping me out of trouble as a young fella. And I think playing a mix of sports is great. I don't like kids who just play one sport at a young age. I think it pigeonholes you. Plus, it's the social side of it. It's the physical side of it. It's good for your health. It's good for your mental well-being. Even as a kid, it's just a good way of learning how to win, learning how to lose. I think nowadays, sometimes there's no winners or losers, and I'm not too sure how that will work, because when, it's what it is about keeping kids involved. But, right at a young age, you learn how to win well, and you learn how, probably more importantly, to lose well. I have a 3-year-old at the moment who needs to be first at everything, who needs to be the winner at everything. There's grand when you're saying, "Oh, can you be the first to brush your teeth?" But when his 5 or 6-year-old cousin beats him in a race and he's just rolling around on the ground in absolute tears, it's good for kids to learn that.
I'll be honest, there's a couple of former teammates of yours that I could see rolling around on the ground. It's something similar to that too, so I can definitely imagine that. From when you were young and having the experience you said, having your parents being able to bring you to things and going to do different sports as much as you possibly can, do you have an early hero that you could have looked up to when you were younger, that you could have said, you know what, I used to love when he or she played sport and they were my hero growing up? Do you have one of them, or was it more a collective, you just liked watching every other sport, or was it just participating in it?
Yeah, like I was also very lucky in that my father was involved with, when I was really young, was involved with Corcan as a coach. I wasn't alive when he was still playing. He was a coach in Corcan at the start when the AIL started out in the early 90s, and I've memories of being in the dressing room and before and after games, and then working as a bar kid collecting glasses under a cloud of smoke in the bar in in the mid to late 90s. But also he was then coach of Munster and manager of Munster in the late 90s. And I've very clear recollection of going to Munster matches. I remember going to a Munster match, Munster playing Connacht up in Cannes, and there was maybe 50, 60, 70, 100 people at it. There would have been multiples of that the following day at an AL game. So I have memories of that going back. But Anthony Foley was probably someone who I remembered early on. And also a guy, John Langford, an Aussie guy who was in the second round Munster. And I'll never forget, he came up to me and said, he just kind of asked me, do you golf? I was like, I do. And he's like, yeah, good. He's like, why is it? Well, it's good to play individual sports as well. This is probably the Aussie mentality. It's good to play individual sports to learn that, the selfish side of things, because in a team, it can be easy to hide or to be carried along on everyone else's shoulders, which is a really important, piece. But I just remember that as well. But yeah, Anthony Foley growing up, I just loved the way he played. I loved that he was, all bash and brawn, but then had these incredible skills, putting in little grubber kicks, and was always intelligent, finding himself popping up out in the wing, scoring tries right, left, and centre. Something I never managed to emulate, but I enjoyed watching it. And then even back in years ago, there was a winger called Dennis O'Dowd. I remember he got a hat trick playing for Con, and I got his jersey afterwards, and just little memories like that. And Ultan O'Callaghan, Donica's brother, he was number 8 for Con. What a hero when he was back playing. So loads of, no one single idol, but like plenty of great memories of guys I liked watching.
Yeah, and I think the thing I love about that as well is the story around Con, but also it connects to your family and it connects to your friends and it connects to your group that's around. I think sometimes when we look at even the commercialization side of sport, we get lost in the importance of what it is. At no stage did you mention, when they won the game against Shannon, or when they won the game against whoever. It was more about the moments and the stories that it allows you to remember from. I think sometimes sports clubs and brands, we forget that we focus instead on, we got to make sure that we show the game, or we show the moment in the game, rather than flipping the camera the other way and looking at the people that are there, and whether it's a connection with family, whether it's a connection with friends, or whether it's a connection with just moments that stick in your head, like getting that jersey off. I'll be honest, I'm a rugby geek and I don't know who that winger was, but it obviously stuck in your head when it came to that moment, that it meant something to you to get that jersey. And I think as a brand and as clubs and federations, we need to just keep on the memory of that as well.
Yeah, and look, the power of sport. It's never ending, really. And another snapshot, like my brother played with Con, he played with Chris, he played with UCC. Then he moved to Vancouver, and he joined Vancouver Rowers Rugby Club over there. And it just, when you hear of guys who move over to Paris or Australia and they start playing GAA for the first time ever. A good friend who ended up down in Melbourne, and he started playing GAA, and I was like, you wouldn't cross the road like to watch a football match. And it just allows guys like my brother and other people just to make these great connections, and then get jobs out of it in these big cities around the world. And it brings you closer to other Irish people abroad and other like-minded people, because if you like sport, it kind of doesn't really matter. Like, anytime I've been lucky enough to be in America, I'm fascinated by college sports of all kinds. It's just this universal, I think, language that if you like one sport, you probably fundamentally like them all. And it's a great way of, it's great entertainment, but if you play it, it's a great way of connecting, networking, opening up business opportunities, jobs for people, that this is now from a non-professional level. It's just really important, and it's a great connector of people.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. And I think people need, from a personal perspective, people should understand the importance of sport and the passion of where it comes to. But then also on the flip side, when it goes into the professional element, which I'll move on to now, is when you go into professional sport and it becomes an obsessive because it's your job and it what funds your family and it what funds yourself. My first question would be, when you first got into the academy within Munster and you first got your first contract at Munster Rugby, was the knowledge and understanding of the fact that Munster Rugby represented more than just the team directly connected to it, that it was connected to the other commercial entities that are around it, better the staff in the background and into the supporter base? Was that knowledgeable to you at that age, or was it just a case of, I've got a chance to play for Munster, this is going to be great for me personally?
It was a little bit different back then, I suppose. When I left school in 2004, and I did a year in the unpaid sub academy, which is kind of a year to see how you get on, and then I got on into the full academy thereafter. About 3 years of that. The commercialization was so different back then in the mid 2000s. Even though Munster were they were really taking off. For me, it was just like getting the Munster gear and getting to wear the gear that you've earned and getting to train, sometimes catching a glimpse of Raj or someone like that, or some of the up and coming lads. That's commercialization was a million miles. I didn't even thought about it. I didn't know who paid me or how I was paid. In fact, at that point I didn't care what I was paid. Getting the bag of gear at the start of the season, being able to say that you were in the Munster Academy. I remember we got it was these Canterbury t-shirts that said Canterbury on the front, and it just had Munster Academy written across the back. And you got 3 of them, and it was just amazing. You were delighted to get them, and I suppose I was lucky enough to be, to be a professional rugby player with Munster over 14 years, from 2007 to 2021, and I got to see how Munster evolved commercially over the years and how it changed and where it was at the end of my career from where it started. It was a million miles apart. It was totally different, and it was incredible how it had changed.
And from that perspective, when you're getting towards 2020 and 2021, or even 2018, 2019, 2020, are you being advised by people about when your career finishes what you should do, or was it still focused on, do you know what, I want to play for another 2 years, my focus on getting another 2-year contract, that's what I want to do? Which was it, or was there a mixture of both?
There's a mixture of both. Like, what you're doing is the best job in the world, and you want to keep going, but you're A, not a soccer player where you get paid enough to put the feet up when you retire and live off your earnings, and B, it's going to come to an end. It's people laugh at me and say, oh, it's very negative, but the only certainty in professional rugby is that it ends. It's the only thing you're guaranteed is that it'll end at some stage. And Rugby Players Ireland, previously Irupa, they have been fantastic, and they have evolved over the years. And as an example, in Munster, Marcus Horan is the player development manager.
Yeah.
And his job, it's your old school career counsellor, career guidance officer. And Marcus's job is from when somebody comes into the academy to when they leave, and when they've left, like now, is to be a sounding board, to be there to help you. When guys are in college, it's Marcus will build a relationship with the university, or with the like CIT or MTU as it's now called, and enables guys to do exams after the general exam has been on, or do exams remotely, or when I was doing my QFAs, the QFA was on a Saturday. I couldn't do it, obviously, because I had a match on. So Marcus liaised with the LIA, who were running the exams, and I did the exam on the Friday evening with Marcus supervising me. So those sort of things are invaluable, along with when you are finishing up, they line up job opportunities. They put you in connection with people. They provide mentoring services between business people and players. They provide seminars on CV writing. So there's a huge amount. Of Munster have dabbled in that a little bit over the years, but Rugby Players Ireland have really nailed it, and it's critically important. I think back to my time in the academy, and I think a third of the guys in the academy actually played professional rugby.
Yeah.
And only like probably half of that third actually had a career out of rugby. And in that, I'm one of them. And here I am wearing a shirt and tie, or a shirt without my tie on a Wednesday afternoon, on a Wednesday morning. So, you know, you need to, and do you know what? Rugby, and particularly rugby in Munster, it's so intense. Having something else to focus on is critical. It's not a nice to have, in my opinion. It's a critical thing. You need to have something else. If you have a young family, fair enough, that'll take up a lot of your time. But, you know, you need to be studying something, whether it could be a night course, anything. And it's just a good distraction. It's good to keep your mind. Because when you're not winning, or you're not selected, or you're injured, it can be all consuming, and, you know, it can be a really difficult place for a player to be in. And these are the things that people don't see. You know, this is, about commercialization and professional sport. But what you don't see is Munster have a squad of 45 players.
Yep.
There's only 15 guys who get to play at the weekend. There's only 15 happy. You might have 10 injured, 15 happy, 8 so-so because they're on the bench. And like, without getting too deep into the maths, you're gonna have another 10 or 15 who are just not playing at the weekend, and that's not where anyone ever wants to be. So you need to have an out.
And that's where the problem comes from. Not problem with that, when then falls into the commercial part of things, because we're then given those 10 players to walk around hospitality suites or whatever it is. And it's very composite on me when I worked at Munster that I was very knowledgeable that these guys are going to be not in the best of form, because they are professionals and they are professional players, their professional responsibilities, and they understand their needs, but they may not necessarily want to be there at that moment because they want to be on the field, because that's their job, that's their week up, lead up to it. And I think sometimes when it comes to, again, stadiums and clubs, we need to be conscious of that, so that when it comes to those conversations, it's about making sure that you make them aware of why we're doing this. So using your example, turning around to player A and go, okay, I can't control you being on the field or not, but what I can do is I can put you in front of potentially people that you might be interested in. Is there a specific industry that you're interested in? Oh, I'm interested in tech. I'm interested in aviation. Suddenly now you get that conversation about where I can put them in front of. So Rugby Players Ireland and Marcus do a fantastic job of that. But I think clubs also need to take responsibility. I'm not talking about Munster, I'm talking about clubs as a universal whole. They need to take responsibility of how they can assist their players as well, and how they can help their players, not necessarily the ones who are on the field, but also the players who might be injured or players who are going to be growing with that. The other one I wanted to talk to you about is the word retirement. And it's something that has been annoying me a lot. And when I look at sports people who, let's be honest, majority of them would retire in their mid-30s, early to mid-30s. Hopefully they get to that point because there's no injuries involved. But your take on the word retirement in an early part of the age 30, when you were forced to stop playing rugby, did you find the use of the word retirement not helpful, or was it just it doesn't matter, I moved on to something else?
It's a good one. What actually used to bother me is people say, "Oh, what your rugby career's over and you're moving into the real world." And you're kind of going, "Hold on a second, I've been living." Yeah, you live in a little bit of bubble at times. It's like as if because you're a professional sports person, you aren't exposed to the trials and tribulations of life, and all the emotions that everyone goes through on a daily basis. Yes, you live a different life whereby your weekend is kind of a Wednesday and a Sunday. It's split out, and you get to do amazing things, and you get to run around the pitch and be paid to be really, really fit and healthy, and the list of positive things is endless. But retiring, you could look at it news. I didn't ever let it get to me. It was just a new stage in your life. I was probably at a point in my career, and I'm well aware that a lot of people, sports people, don't get to choose when they retire. And I got to retire at a time when I knew the time was right. And you hear people say, when the time is right, and I knew it was the right time to finish up. But it was only then that I really, really, really felt for players who had to retire in their 20s. At the time you're gutted for them and you feel really bad, but the machine keeps rolling and moves on without them, as it always will do, in the ruthlessness of professional sport. But it probably hit me then that, these people who've had to retire so early due to injury. It was just just what a blow. Like, I was at a stage where I could choose it, and it made so much easier. But yeah, look, retiring, the use of the word didn't bother me too much. Like, how many times can someone retire? If someone changes job and moves to a different job, are they retiring? I don't know. But one thing I do know, and something I feel very strongly about, is anyone who has played professional sport, particularly team professional sport, has all the soft skills that anybody in the real world could ever wish to. In whatever industry it is, they cry out for people who've got good communication skills, who've got teamwork, who've got good discipline, motivation, leadership, who are trustworthy, who are honest. You don't survive in professional sport without all those things are a given, and they're like hen's teeth in the non-professional sporting world. So anyone who I do see who's playing professional sport and coming to the end of their career, it's like, you're gonna do great. Yeah, it can be a really challenging transition into whatever you decide to do next, but you have all the soft skills. You learn the technical pieces. You could go to college and do 4 years of engineering and start a job, and everything you did in the last 4 years is totally irrelevant because there's different systems and different ways of doing it. So I am a big believer in that, because intercounty football, hurling, same thing. You don't survive if you aren't an excellent team player. You don't have good discipline. You aren't motivated. You aren't really driven. Communication. It's just, they're given as a professional sports person. That's not in the non-sporting world.
Yeah, and I think that's what's most attractive to brands out there when they go and try and link in with current players or former players, because exactly what you said, you don't get to be part of that group of people, and because it's you're putting your life and your body on the line for a lot of these team sports. You're putting your reputation, and there's a lot of self-questioning and self-motivation that has to happen, and then you're going to a team environment where you're called out on things which may not be the case in business stuff. It leads me nicely onto what you were saying, because you've answered basically my next question, which was around what did you take from professional sport into non-professional sport. But to move on from what you were saying a little bit, did you find it challenging that you had gone from an environment where there was such a culture of calling people out, making sure that everything was 100% perfect, that there was a structure to your week, and then you go into, again, we use that word, normal world, which I totally agree with you, there's no such thing, but you went into that scenario where it's, I'm not talking about your current job, but your overall outlet of it, where it's not as structured, it's not as 9 o'clock you get up and do this, 10 o'clock you do this, 11 o'clock you do this. Did you find that a challenge when you first went into a non-professional sports role?
Yeah, hugely. Bizarrely so. Well, probably not bizarrely so, but like some of the things that I probably quickly realized that people's motivations are totally different. A lot of people work and they only work so that they can live, or they work so they can go on holidays, as opposed to working as a professional sports person or a professional rugby player to try and win the European Cup or to win the URC. There's this collective overarching goal, and I lost more semi-finals than I have fingers on my hands, unfortunately. And each year you come back.
I was there.
Yeah, each year you come back and you're rejuvenated and you're refreshed and you're motivated to go again. And in the normal working world, that doesn't exist. And for me, I think what's important is learning what motivates people. It doesn't matter what your motivation is. If you know what motivates somebody, you can harness that to help them achieve what they want, and as a manager, get out of your staff what you need out of them. A call-out culture in professional sport. You saw Dan Biggar like roaring and shouting the other night for Wales against Fiji to his teammates. Probably an extreme example of it, but preview, when you're reviewing a match on Monday morning, as a professional sports person, you review yourself. You're probably your harshest critic. your family review you. Like for JJ Hanrahan telling me his mother after a game just texted him and said, "Why did you miss those kicks?" So,
Thanks, man.
Don't make me tell you that story, but you get reviewed by anybody who's got a social media profile or a mobile phone. But then Monday mornings when the real review comes in and your coaches and your peers review you, and it's honest and it can be tough to take, but it's what happens as a norm. You call people out, and how you do it is important as well, because it's all constructive. And I did find that is not how it is in the business world. I probably learned one or two examples early on, that I was maybe lucky to avoid there being any issues, that you kind of call things as they are, and that's not how it happens. And look, there's reason for that. There's labor laws and things like that aren't as aren't as adhered to in professional sport, but because in professional sport everyone has this common goal and everyone's a high achiever, and it is different in the business world. But I still think you can take in a lot of those learnings, but you got to harness them in different ways. I say, from motivation, if someone's motivated to try and get more holidays, well, then you can utilize that. If someone's motivated because they have they want more money, or they want to work less hours, whatever it is, you can always find a way, I think. And it's a really important thing. And man management, doesn't matter what industry it's in, doesn't matter what sport it is in, or what level it's in, it all comes down to man management and how you manage individuals and how you manage groups. And that's a really strong learning from professional sport as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic message. And I also love the fact that you've obviously taken stuff that you've learned from coaches or from players or from teammates, etc., that you've seen, and then taken it into the business context and just tweaked it to match your team or your group. And I think that's a credit to you, but it's also a credit to the group you were there that taught you these things, and whether that was coaches, whether it was family, whether that was teammates. And I think that's really important, because you can use that right across the board. And as you were explaining that, it just started bringing back memories for myself about managers that I had who would give me that man management skill. Moving into the future of sport specifically, and moving in where we look at sport as a whole, as a kind of future entity. You said that when you first came into Munster back in the mid 2000s, that it wasn't the same juggernaut that it is in 2021 when you left. If there was one thing that you could say that stood out the most from a technological perspective? Now, it can be connected to your job, or it can be connected to the stadiums, or it can be connected to something else. What was the one thing that you can put your finger on and say, yeah, that was not even thought about in the mid 2000s, and now it's a given, it's a core part of who we are?
Something like GPS. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. GPS, the amount of data and analytics in professional sport is phenomenal. And, there was always video cameras and there was things recorded, but now training sessions and GPS are actually connected, and, they can see live, how hard someone is working. All training sessions are recorded and reviewed, not just the matches, but then the data. And as a coach or as a coaching group, it's important to be able to, not get sucked into all the data, but use it in a positive way. You can see that somebody is tiring early, and it's not about how far someone has run or how fast they've run. It's their reaction to get off the ground, their energy, their intensity. They can work all this out. And data analytics in sport is a huge part of it now, without going down the Moneyball route, of course. But you hear all these stats bandied around, if you run over a certain distance, if you kick over a certain distance, if you keep the ball in play for a certain amount of minutes. There's like certain teams know that if the ball is in play more than a certain amount of minutes, they'll lose. Other teams know that if it's in play for more than a certain amount of minutes, they'll win. There's all these, possession stats. And I think as a coach, you could probably get bogged down in it all. You gotta remain true to what your coaching philosophy is and what's worked for you in the past, and use that to use that to assist your just gut feeling, and your gut feeling might look like, geez, Billy Holland, he looks tired today. He's not bouncing around the pitch. And then you kind of ask your GPS guy or your head of performance, and they can say, yeah, well, look, all week he's been putting in this, that, and the other on his app, which is, you'd be putting in your everything from your weight to your sleep to your recovery. All that sort of data is gathered every single day, and they can probably tell you beforehand whether you're going to be bouncing or not that day. So that's been a huge change over the years, and it's important, it's good, but it needs to be used in the correct manner, I think.
Yeah, I think, again, you can use that in a business context as well, without going obviously data and running, but you can use it with different elements of how somebody is doing their role and what they're meant to be doing. Yeah. Just because it's topical at the moment, the FIFA Women's World Cup, the soccer one that was down in Australia, and how amazing it was for the Irish women, and how amazing it was for fans in Ireland to get to watch their team. Do you see women's sport has evolved in that period of time? And if so, is it something that you think needs to get even better, or do you see it growing almost organically?
It's evolving, absolutely. Like, you look at where women's sport is in general now to maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it's light years ahead, but it's still way off where it needs to be. And I think a lot of that is a funding thing. There's exposure from a media perspective. I think you could go back 12 months and you wouldn't have heard as much on the radio or the TV or on social media. And even Munster have really, I've noticed in the last year, really promoted the women's game enormously, as it should be. And I think until the women's game gets the exposure on social media channels, on news channels, on TV, until you have female pundits doing rugby games, until you have female referees doing male rugby games, and male referees doing female games, and vice versa. I think until that happens, it's still going to lag behind. But I think there's been huge strides made, and the financial side of it always comes down to that, doesn't it? Nothing can grow without money. And I think money needs to be prioritized, because, you come back to what I started with, the women playing down in Australia recently, like the amount of young girls that they would inspire to keep playing soccer and keep playing soccer, not stopping when they're 17 or 18 or 19, to continue. That's the really important bit. It needs to be right for girls from the age of 5 or 6 right through to into their mid-20s, like there is for males at the moment. And until that pathway is there, and the Irish women, they were remarkable in what they did in the soccer World Cup. But in 4 years' time, in the next Soccer World Cup, you hope that there's more better players with more, due to more funding and better pathways for them.
Yeah, I think what was really what I loved about the Irish national team down in Australia was they weren't expected to win, so their goal wasn't to win. Their goal was to get there, and when they've got there, and how I loved how Sky promoted it, but I also loved how the FAI actually promoted the announcement of the squad, where they had a young girl kicking a ball against the wall, and she was naming out the players. And I think that's really important, is that the girls that are watching now, who are the 12, 13, 14, that their hero isn't Lionel Messi, or their hero isn't Ronaldo or whoever. It's Katie McCabe, or it's Brosnan, or that's where you've really got buy-in. And then the same goes for rugby, that we hope we look at someone like a Dorothy Wall or a Maeve O'Leary, Munster girls that are watching those players and going, yeah, do you know what, that's what I want to be. I want to represent my country, and they're my heroes. They're the people I look up to. And that goes right across all sports. I can't remember if it was the girl, the Waterford golfer as well. All those growth elements within different sports.
Leona Maguire,
Maguire.
They're incredible. They're incredible athletes and sports people, and you just hope that the 7-8-year-old girls are looking up to them, as you say, as opposed to their male counterparts.
And I think if you ask any person in Ireland to name their number one boxer, they'll all say Katie Taylor. And that's a legacy that she's left behind, and that's what you want. And that doesn't matter whether she's male, female, doesn't matter. She's the best boxer in Ireland, or she's the best boxer in the world right now, and that's what you want from growth in that. I'm going to finish up with what I do with everybody, which is a top 10. It's not anything, man. It's just quick questions like tea or coffee, etc. So sit back, answer as quick as you can, whatever answer you can think of. So don't worry, I'm not trying to catch you out or trick you. I really haven't. I'll start with the easy one. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Netflix or the cinema?
Netflix, because I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so the cinema doesn't really happen.
What series are you watching?
As well.
Yeah, I definitely know that pain. What Netflix series are you watching or have watched recently?
I have actually watching nothing at the moment. The last thing I watched was the Tour de France documentary, which was very interesting.
That was very good, actually. Club or province?
Well, I'm coaching my club and I played for my province.
That's the answer. That'll do.
The province is nothing without the club.
Good answer. The best single moment in sport you witnessed. You didn't have to play, you witnessed. What's the best single moment that comes to your mind?
Munster versus Glasgow Warriors the day after Anthony Foley was buried. That was just a special day for the community and for the whole of Munster rugby.
Yep, totally agree. Best stadium you've ever been at?
The Millennium Stadium.
And what makes it so special?
When the roof is closed, it's like you go into a community hall or a school hall, and the noise in there. Well, you put 80,000 people in a school hall, and you close the roof, and it's deafening.
Must be difficult to make line calls or make line out calls when it's proper screaming in a place like that. It's
best guess.
Just throw it and catch. Best holiday destination?
I was in Alvor in Portugal this year with my kids, and I loved it. It was very different. I've been to fancier places, luckily, but I just loved it. Just being on holidays in the sun with the kids and good grub in the evening and plenty of ice cream and beer. It was just a lovely memory.
I'm assuming that's part of not being involved in sport. You don't have to worry about how much ice cream you have or how much pizza you eat or what you have to go and do with those kind of things.
I still went away in June for some reason. I could go anytime I want now, but I'm still I think it's instilled in me that I have to go on holidays in June or July.
Your poor wife. Advice to a young player who's just joined an academy within Ireland, and they ring you up and ask you for a 1-2 line advice you'd give them. What would it be?
Focus on what you're good at. I think too often you're being told to improve on what you're not good at. You gotta have a unique selling point as a professional sports person. There's got to be a reason why a professional coach or CEO is going to give you a contract, and there's a reason you're there. You got to learn what that reason is, and you got to be incredible at it.
Last question: if sport was declared banned in the morning, so no one could talk about it, play with it, get involved with it, have anything to do with it, how would that impact your life?
It would destroy society.
I love that answer.
I think it would just be whatever, but my life, it would destroy society. I think it's such a good learning for society. It's not the only thing in society that matters, obviously, but it's such a positive piece of the life that we have. And you make your best friends. I have friends from when I started playing rugby when I was 5 years old. I have friends that have never played professional rugby, and they're my best friends. It's just you make friendships from life. You learn good lessons, bad lessons, good memories, and you just learn a lot about yourself. And it's just also really good for your physical and mental health. It's just there's no badness and there's no negative in sport.
Billy Holland, I massively appreciate your time as always. All the best. If anyone wants to make sure that they go and get their mortgage in Cork City, Cork County, make sure you get on to Billy in the EBS. I'm sure he'll be able to help out. And if there's any players listening in, God, you've got to make sure you go to Billy, because that's not fair. He's been looking after you for so long. So again, massively appreciate your time, Billy. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Andy.
That was Billy Holland, and what I found fascinating about that was some of the stuff that Billy spoke about where he took the information that he got and learning from professional sport and brought it into the work environment. Very much focused then on how do you change and tweak it so that it matches the work environment's knowledge. I think it's really important when it comes to any brand out there who want to get an ambassador of sport and bring them in to work with them. It's the opportunity that they give you. I also think it's fascinating. He speaks about the importance of a rugby player or a sports personality when they go into their next career and they look at that and go, yeah, I've got the tactics that are there. I know exactly what I'm looking at. I'm gonna use the experience I've got, and I can bring so much to the table. Sometimes sports people are looked at in a different light, and I think it's really important that people remember that there's an opportunity for brands to grow, not just use them as gimmicks in a marketing tool, but actually use their skill set that they've been doing for the last 15, 20 years to actually achieve something for your brand and your growth. Same thing then goes for clubs and federations. When a player leaves their club, it's really important that you keep them connected to your club. Why? Because they're the heartbeat of what it is. But they also have knowledge and information that will help you grow, not just your players coming up behind, but your actual organization as a whole. I think that's what I've learned from this conversation. I think it's brilliant to have. You can contact me in connection with how I can help you grow your club, grow your federation, even grow your brand, and through what I'm looking to do at AMSC. So you can follow me, and my details are flying through at the bottom. But you can follow me at AMSC right across the board: LinkedIn, YouTube. You've got loads of different videos that we have up, and also loads of comments we will have on LinkedIn, Twitter. I think it's called X now, but let's call it Twitter. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, right across. So please keep in touch. My music is going to play me out, as always, before I go.